UW Math and Accounting alumnus. His almost son, Francisco Castono, a UW Civil Engineering alumnus. Welcome. Unfortunately, Doug's son, Clyde Wright, is unable to be here, although he too is a UW alumnus in math and accounting. Doug had 17 grandchildren, many of whom are here today, and no surprise, are also UW alumni. Where are the grandchildren? Oh, welcome, everybody. Doug also had 3 great-grandchildren, with more to come, I am sure. And we have our eye on them here at Waterloo as well. Where are the 3 grandchildren? 2 are here. Can you raise your hands? I'm going to be speaking to you after this event. On a more serious note, as we begin today's event, it is important to reflect and acknowledge the University of Waterloo's campuses in Waterloo, Kitchener, and Cambridge are situated on the Haldimand Tract, land 6 miles on each side of the Grand River, granted to the Haudenosaunee of 6 nations. The land inside and surrounding the Haldimand Tract, including our Stratford campus, is in the traditional territory of the Attawandarond, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. I also acknowledge and recognize this area is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis groups, and the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today through a spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Yesterday, I was very proud to participate in and witness our university's commitment to reconciliation, indigenization, and decolonization, and I am personally committed to moving beyond words towards meaningful action, towards truth and reconciliation with our Indigenous people. Doug Wright passed away on May 21st, 2020. Although his passing took place during the COVID-19 pandemic and we were not able to gather right away, it means so much to us here and to me personally at the University of Waterloo to collaborate with his family to be able to host this event and this tribute today. As you will hear from our various speakers, both live and through video reflections, the University of Waterloo simply would not be the institution it is today without him. And I would argue even our region would not be the way it is today without his lasting legacy. Doug served as our institution's president and vice-chancellor for almost 12 years, from 1981 to 1993, but was also its founding Dean of Engineering. As our current Dean of Engineering, I am especially grateful to host today's event, given Doug's important and lasting contributions to our engineering faculty. When Doug joined the university, he saw a unique opportunity to re-envision how engineering was taught and wholeheartedly embraced and led the merger between academia and business via the new cooperative education program. He really created an atmosphere at the university and in the business community that supported what I would call mutual admiration. This co-op model has led to a symbiotic relationship between academia and industry, fostering creativity, a greater understanding of industry needs, and entrepreneurship, which we still are enjoying today. All of these characteristics continue to be hallmarks of Waterloo engineering today, and again, I would argue, have put this region on the map as one of the fastest growing technology hubs in the entire world. From my perspective, the genius of Doug was that he was not satisfied with being a superlative academic. He was driven to make his university an agent of progress and change. Since Doug's passing, we have spent time reminiscing, looking through old photos and other materials in the university's archives, and remembering the many contributions of a life well lived. In tribute, we have put together this video highlighting Doug's time and impact on the University of Waterloo. Please take a look.
Douglas Tyndall Wright left a teaching position at Queen's University to join the upstart University of Waterloo in 1958 as the first chair of its civil engineering department. When Doug Wright arrived on campus, there was only one permanent building, the Chemistry and Chemical Engineering building, along with an old farmhouse in the middle of a field in North Waterloo. Wright soon became the university's first Dean of Engineering and, at 32 years old, the youngest in Canada. What attracted Wright to Waterloo was its lack of inertia and its appetite for change. Where other institutions were unwilling to change their customs and curriculum to help build Canada's post-war economy, Waterloo was open to radical approaches to post-secondary education that would meet the country's needs. Wright understood that cooperative education combined with mathematical modeling, computer science, and theoretical research was a way for Waterloo to distinguish itself, giving its graduates both academic and real-world experience while placing its faculty and students on the cutting edge. While Wright was dean, he helped Waterloo become the largest undergraduate engineering school in the country, and in doing so, he helped change the way engineering was taught in Canada. In 1967, Wright left the university for Queen's Park. In response to the mounting provincial costs for university education, William Davis, the then Minister of Education, tapped Wright as the head of the province's Committee on University Affairs. The committee dramatically changed the system of university funding and made possible the equitable growth of Ontario's newer universities. Wright then became Deputy Minister in Bill Davis's government. He was responsible for policy leadership for Ontario's three super ministries: education, health, and social support. During this time, ever the engineer, Wright continued his space frame projects, including the Mexico City Olympic Sports Stadium. In 1981, at age 53, Doug Wright returned to Waterloo as its third President and Vice-Chancellor, his arrival signaling a return to the restlessness and momentum of the university's early years. As a champion of cooperative education and research intensity, he encouraged creativity and risk-taking. He strongly believed in professors and creators retaining their intellectual property. Consolidating Waterloo's computer-driven research activity into the Institute for Computer Research had far-reaching effects. Hewlett-Packard, IBM, and Digital Equipment Corporation announced multi-million-dollar technology partnership agreements with the university. Oxford University Press chose Waterloo to manage the computerization of the Oxford English Dictionary. This was one of Doug Wright's proudest achievements. It also led to the creation of OpenText, Canada's largest software company. With his classic won't take no for an answer approach, Wright convinced Premier Bill Davis of the need for a state-of-the-art computer research centre on campus, in spite of an Ontario government moratorium on constructing new university buildings. The 300,000 square foot Davis Centre opened in November 1988 to great fanfare, with the former Premier on hand as guest of honor. Under Wright's leadership, Waterloo's spirit grew more entrepreneurial and international, and Wright helped the university take its spirit of innovation to the world. During his tenure, he moved the university to a new level of applied knowledge, patents, and technology transfer, and spin-off success. Wright was Waterloo's President and Vice-Chancellor from 1981 to 1993. Wright served on a number of technical committees and as structural advisor on Toronto's iconic Sky Dome, later the Rogers Centre. Wright was proud of the dome's fully retractable roof, the first of its kind for any stadium, and an inspiration for civil engineers everywhere. After leaving the university in 1993, he served on many boards, including Research in Motion, ComDev, Bell Canada, Electrohome, Geometrica, and the Perimeter Institute, and advised numerous startups and spin-offs. His honors include 12 honorary doctorates, the Order of Canada, and the Chevalier of France. And he had another side too, with his love and commitment to the arts, including his work with Stratford and the McMichael Art Gallery boards. Doug Wright's career at Waterloo is closely tied to its origins as an institution and to a period of accelerated growth in both size and reputation. It's fitting that that first permanent academic building on our main campus now bears his name. Our campus community is forever reminded of his legacy as a visionary leader who served this university, his community, his family, and country at the highest levels.
Good morning, everyone. What an inspirational man and story. I'm Cindy Forbes, and as chair, it is my absolute pleasure to bring remarks on behalf of the University of Waterloo Board of Governors this morning. In our 65th year as a university, we do not take for granted Waterloo's reputation as a global leader in cooperative learning, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And we have Doug Wright to thank for that. Doug paved a groundbreaking path by integrating cooperative education into curriculum, which was unheard of at that time. As an alumna of the Faculty of Mathematics, I remember my own co-op work terms and how integral they were to my learning and development. They set me up for future success by allowing me to see the application of what I was learning in the classroom with what was happening in the workplace. And they helped me establish connections that would help me when I graduated. Today, cooperative education and experiential learning remain our cornerstone. In fact, right now, there are almost 71 students in working in work terms across, in industry and community settings across Canada and around the globe. During the pandemic, we took immediate action to pivot cooperative education in response to the immediate needs of our students and our partners. Among other innovations, we introduced the Waterloo Experience Accelerate program, collaborating with industry partners like Deloitte, Microsoft, and Manulife to provide a new work-term option for undergraduate co-op students. Like Doug before us, we are constantly innovating. As we watched in the video, Doug and his colleagues at the time were forward-thinking, willing to take risks, to think and act differently. And so today, we call on those principles yet again to inspire our students, our researchers, our educators, our alumni, and our partners. Doug's unconventional way of thinking directly resulted in Waterloo developing programming that was creative, industry-focused, and research-intensive. This legacy lives on, and I want to share an example with you. Soon, we will break ground on our new home for innovation and entrepreneurship at the University of Waterloo, called the Innovation Arena. Located in the City of Kitchener's Innovation District, the Innovation Arena will amplify Canada's health tech sector. With Velocity, Waterloo's renowned startup incubator, at its core, the new collaboration space will streamline commercialization pathways for businesses, fast-track delivery of health technologies, and drive Canada's next wave of economic growth. I don't know about you, but I certainly see Doug Wright's spirit in the innovation arena. We are thinking differently and acting differently, engaging our local community and industry partners as we tackle some of the great challenges of our day. And as you will hear later from President Goel, Doug's spirit will inspire our institution as together we are imagining the future of our university decades ahead. It is now my pleasure to welcome some reflections from another Waterloo leader and colleague, Tom Jenkins. Tom is the chair of the board of OpenText, a global company with its roots right here at the university. Among other things, Tom is Chancellor Emeritus of the University of Waterloo. He considered Doug a mentor and an inspiration. Tom unfortunately could not attend today's event in person, but he wanted to share his reflections on Doug's legacy as a leader and a visionary. Please take a look.
I first met Doug when I was a young entrepreneur doing a small startup that was a spin-off of the university. And I got invited to Doug's house. And that was a hot ticket invitation back in those days because you never knew who Doug was going to have in his house. And I got to meet people from all over the world because Doug knew people from all over the world. And that became my great introduction to international business. I always savored getting an invite to come over to Doug's house because it was such an education. One of the conversations over several glasses of wine and beer at Doug's house, he said to me, you know, Tom, I've learned in life that it's best to be the second best in a deal because they always would come back and do another deal with me. I've lived my life that way. I've made sure that in business arrangements and things that I do, that I come out second best because someone will always want to do another deal with me. And Doug taught me that 40 years ago, and I've lived my life that way. My favorite memory of Doug was walking in, and we started talking about something called the Oxford English Dictionary Project. And Doug was a great proponent of it, and it became the core technology behind what then became the largest software company in Canada's history, OpenText. And Doug was a huge proponent of it. And you know, if Doug were to hear today that OpenText became the largest software company in Canada, he'd say, of course. The great thing that we can take away, and what I took away from Doug, was, and I didn't appreciate it until I became chancellor and got involved in public policy, is that you can be both a human being and very human, but you can also be intellectually excellent. And the things that Doug did so humanly, and the way he did it with such magnetism, and everyone laughed when you were in a really contentious meeting with Doug, because that's the way he was. I learned from him that you can be both human and really far-sighted at the same time. He was a master of that. The biggest thing that I take away from my memories of Doug is that I was in awe of the president, but I love the man.
Thank you so much, Cindy and Tom, for those thoughtful reflections. I love the idea of being in awe of the president, but in love with the man. That's wonderful. One of our colleagues who has had a long-standing relationship with the work of Douglas Wright is Rick Haldenby, former director of our University School of Architecture. Rick and Doug were colleagues, and they often collaborated on research projects together. Rick is currently in Rome, teaching in our School of Architecture as part of their annual field trip. Though he is most disappointed that he is not able to join us here in person, it was so important for him to share some reflections on Doug as a friend and a mentor. So please listen now.
Hi, my name's Rick Haldenby. I'm the former director of the University of Waterloo School of Architecture. I came to the University of Waterloo as an undergraduate student in architecture in 1969. And I am the founder of the University of Waterloo Rome program, and I'm the guy who led the School of Architecture to move to Cambridge. I'm here today to share with you my memories of and my admiration for Doug Wright. Doug Wright was my mentor. Doug Wright was my inspiration. When I was the head of the School of Architecture, he was the president of the university. He encouraged me, he supported me. He was the one whose ideas about the university and about the richness and potential of the University of Waterloo inspired me to lead the School of Architecture in ways that I think have made it one of the most important institutions in architecture in the world. As Doug Wright, as Dean of Engineering at the University of Waterloo and laterly as President of the university, led the university into the highest echelons of the academic world. Doug was a polymath. He was first and foremost an engineer. But the most important thing about him was that he did not believe in the differentiation in fields of knowledge. He believed that all knowledge was unified, and that knowledge included aesthetics, and that knowledge included computing science, and knowledge included statics and structures. He, of course, loved architectural structures. He loved thin-shelled concrete vaults, domes. He loved the aspiration of monumental structure. And so it's completely appropriate today that I'm standing in the villa that was constructed by the man who may have built more than anyone in all human history, the Emperor Hadrian. And we are standing under a dome that is faceted, poured concrete, unreinforced, an absolutely splendid piece of construction technology. That fascinated the the kind that fascinated Douglas Tyndall Wright. Doug loved poetry, Doug loved painting, Doug loved buildings. Doug loved all of human experience, and so it's incredibly significant today that I, unable to attend the celebration of Doug's life that's going on at the university, am able to contribute this small piece from a great distance, but from a place that Doug visited several times. Doug was the only university president who came to visit us at the Rome campus of the University of Waterloo. And during that time, he visited the villa where I stand now, the villa built by the Emperor Hadrian, who shared with Doug one great characteristic, and that is the characteristic that they saw all the problems of the world as one problem, and they tried to solve them. I'm so glad to be with you. Please join me in celebrating Doug's fundamental contributions to the creation, the culture, and the success, present, past, and future, of the University of Waterloo. Thanks very much.
What a lovely tribute. And Vivek, I think you've been issued a challenge to go visit the Rome campus by Rick. It is now my pleasure to introduce some of our very talented student musicians to perform for everyone today. Thank you to our talented students, Frank, Cheyenne, and Robert. Another round of applause, please. It is now my pleasure to introduce our 7th President and Vice-Chancellor, Vivek Goel, to share some reflections.
We are humbled that the Wright family has invited us to celebrate President Emeritus Wright's life and contributions to the University of Waterloo. The pandemic delayed this event, but I'm so pleased that we're able to come together today to honor one of Waterloo's founders. As founding Dean of Engineering and later Waterloo's 3rd President and Vice-Chancellor, we've already heard how Dr. Wright's vision and drive from the very outset of Waterloo's existence in the 1950s helped propel us to where we find ourselves today. His willingness to take risks and pave a groundbreaking path of integrating cooperative education into curriculum is the cornerstone of what has established Waterloo as a renowned post-secondary institution. While we mourn the loss of an extraordinary visionary, leading educator, and family member, we can also celebrate the lasting legacy of his contributions to the University of Waterloo. And as we saw in the video, his contributions went far beyond the University of Waterloo through his work in public service. The University of Waterloo would not be the institution it is today without him. His legacy has established the institution as a beacon for innovation, creativity, and impact. Inspired by his contributions and those of our founders, we recently launched a visioning exercise entitled Waterloo at 100. In collaboration with students, faculty, staff, and community stakeholders, we're developing a vision for what the university will look like in 2057, our 100th anniversary. The challenges we face today as a result of the pandemic, the climate crisis, changing geopolitical dynamics, and economic instability are different than those encountered by Dr. Wright and our institution's other founders. What is the same is that we find ourselves at similar crossroads of history. Like them, we face a period of rapid global change and uncertainty. We can honor Dr. Wright's legacy by continuing to be unconventional. Following in the steps taken by President Wright and his peers, we can imagine a bold future that addresses humanity's most pressing challenges and stride into the future with the same confidence and approach he exemplified. Before I close, I would like to read a tribute from Mike Lazaridis that Bill Wright shared with me. I met with Doug Wright when he was president of the University of Waterloo, and I was a student in engineering with a computer science option, where I developed a great respect for him. Later, when we took RIM public to finance the growth of what would become BlackBerry, he was the first person I asked on the board. His enthusiasm for innovation and his experience and wisdom helped us greatly. When I began to put together the board for the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics, I asked Doug to serve. Again, his experience in academia and government was invaluable and helped the success of the Perimeter immensely. He was a champion for Canada and played key roles in the founding and success of the University of Waterloo, UW Co-op Education, RIM, Perimeter, and the Greater Waterloo region. His friendship, counsel, and support over the decades has been very important to me personally. My recollection of him is so vivid in my mind that he will continue to live in my memory. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to the Wright family for allowing us to pay tribute to President Wright. It is now my pleasure to welcome Doug's daughter, Anna Scott, to provide some reflections on behalf of the Wright family.
I'm Anna, the youngest of Doug Wright's 5 children, and as Mary said, all 5 of us are proud University of Waterloo graduates, and my eldest brother Bill and I are engineers. I'm here to speak today about my father and to give you a little insight into the man we knew as Dad. My father was a special man and had many strengths and gifts, but what stands out the most to me was his love of learning. When it came to knowledge, he was like a little kid in a candy shop. He wasn't particularly picky, it was all good stuff. My father was raised by his mother and her father, and it was his grandfather that first introduced Dad to books. He only had a grade 7 education, but he read books, library books, voraciously. My father inherited this love, and you won't be surprised to hear that he graduated to the adult section of the library years before his peers. The value of education was further reinforced at university. My father started engineering at the University of Toronto in 1945 and commuted daily to the newly created Ajax campus, a munition factory complex that had been converted to accommodate the thousands of returning World War II vets that wanted to study engineering. Dad learned a lot from these seasoned students, including how to play a mean hand of bridge. Dad had an astonishing depth of knowledge in a huge range of subjects. He was curious about everything. I loved being around Dad. It was like having a personal encyclopedia. He was not a know-it-all, but he had so many facts, juicy tidbits, and jokes at his fingertips. Did you know that T.S. Eliot had a day job at Lloyd's Bank? That Tallinn is the capital of Estonia? Or that Marshall McLuhan authored some questionable jokes? I could go on and on. Dad had a story for everything. And if by strange chance you had a story that he did not know, he would stop moving and give you his complete attention. This was even better. He was learning. Dad was in a class of his own when it came to giving advice, because he almost never gave it. Dad did not judge others and never complained about them. But if you did push, he might give you a gem of wisdom. Over the years, I expect all 5 of us, and quite a few of his 17 grandchildren, heard this: make a decision, and if it turns out to be the wrong decision, make another one. Wow, how freeing is that? Dad was fearless. Trying to figure out a way to spend more time with his family, he enrolled us all in a 1-week sailing course. Immediately afterwards, he bought a 30-foot sailboat, and it wasn't long before we graduated from Lake Ontario to the ocean. I remember one trip when we had chartered a sailboat to tour the Florida Keys. One evening, there was a big storm, and our boat was swinging back and forth on the anchor. The 5 of us nervously crowded around my father below deck as he calmly introduced us to free body diagrams and determined that, yes, the anchor with that length of chain would hold. Another time, crossing from Fort Lauderdale to the Bahamas in a heavy current, my father introduced us to vectors. And did I mention, my father could not swim. My father very early recognized the power of technology. He loved his slide rule, but when HP introduced the first handheld scientific calculator, the HP 35, he jumped on board. I am quite sure we were one of the first families in Toronto, and maybe even Canada, to understand HP's reverse Polish notation. Decades later, Dad introduced another device to his grandchildren. I still remember him sitting down my daughter and with huge enthusiasm pulling out this gray brick of a device. He told her it could send and receive emails and that one day she and all her friends would have one. Despite my father's excitement, my daughter, a teenager at the time, was not convinced. Emails? Who cares about emails? Samantha was holding an early prototype of a BlackBerry, and of course my father was right. Make no mistake, though, my father was a civil engineer at heart. He loved structures, bridges, and trains. We grew up with enormous photographs of geodesic domes on our walls. We called them art. I remember a 2-week bridge tour he took in China. He came back chatting happily about bridges anchored by shopping malls and the enormous bridges now spanning the Yangtze River. He also took a trip to Germany with his engineering grandson, Gregory. This trip was all about trains. Every day, the track was a different gauge. It was very, very exciting. Dad never lost his thrill of learning. Even at the age of 92 and a half, he was still a little boy at heart and still regularly visited the library. On the day before Dad passed, 4 of his children took him sailing on his beloved Abtu. It was May and it was cold, but Dad was keen. At one point, we passed some people kiteboarding. Dad had never seen kiteboarders so close. And he was checking them out. I swear his head popped up an inch and his eyebrows lifted. I recently read that inquisitive people are catalysts for learning. This resonated with me. Dad was a catalyst. He was a catalyst for learning, a catalyst for change, and a catalyst for fun. He will be missed. Before I leave the platform, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the University of Waterloo on behalf of the Wright family, and in particular, Vivek Goel, Mary Wells, Dean of Engineering, Sandra Banks, VP University Relations, and the University Relations team, Ninoni Donaldson and the advancement team. My father was very proud of the work he did here, and I know he would be very appreciative of the honor bestowed on him today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for giving us a little insight into Dad. That was just wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And I want to thank the entire Wright family for being here with us today. We are so grateful that you shared Doug with us. Thank you so much. On behalf of the University of Waterloo, we thank the members of our campus community, former colleagues, friends, and family of Doug who have been viewing online. Doug's was truly a life well lived, and we are grateful for his legacy on our institution and on our community. This concludes our ceremony for today. Thank you very much.